And now, pause the video and learn these rules. Colors that often have to be adjusted and the color correctors towards them. Hello everyone, my name is Elena and Nechayeva. Thank you for purchasing this private color course. We need to understand the definitions. It may be boring, however it's important. About color. Chromatic colors are all colors that consist of colorful shades. Achromatic colors. These are all colors of black and white ranges. Primary colors are the sources of all other colors. All colors of the chromatic palette consist of them. This huge set is like Adam and Eve for people. Only the ancestors of all colors are red, yellow, and blue. Secondary colors is a mixture of two of the three primary ones. I'll show it to you on the palette. I will first note the primary colors that would be visible and understandable for you to remember the pregnatures of all colors. If you combine red and yellow, then we get the color orange. The degree of brightness is adjustable. By adding either more red or yellow, it's all about the shades. Therefore, to make violet, you need to combine red and blue. And to get green, you need to add blue and yellow. Any color has characteristics. The first and most important is brightness. Brightness is the degree of purity. The amount of other colors is in the main color. Color tone is necessary to distinguish. Subtone. Tone is the main color, and subtone is an admixture of different colors to the main color. Due to the difference of subcolors, different shades are formed. The same color, for example, yellow-green. The basic tone is green, and the undertone is yellow. Another very important characteristic is temperature. Color is more cold when there is more blue added, and when it is closer to the blue range on the warm side, and when it's closer to the red. Colors can have different temperatures, even relatively to each other. For example, and oddly enough warmer if there is a little bit of green added. And the same color can be warm when it's compared to colder colors, or colder when compared to more warm colors. General rules: the more red and yellow, the warmer the color, the more the same pigment or color on the shades will seem colder or warmer. Look at this color and the same color on the blue. Do you see the difference? Another important characteristic, especially in permanent makeup, in our case, is the density of laying pigments. How do you get brown? We can get brown by mixing together in equal proportions of yellow, red, and blue. I'll show it to you now. Yellow, red, and blue together turns into a simple brown color. The degree of brightness can be adjusted, governed by the quantity too. It may be transparent, that's why there are the second option, which is brown, black, in which we add red and yellow. The more red and yellow, the lighter warm color is obtained, with less black in it. And by large, these two options are similar. The second may even look warmer. By the way, for those who are thinking about creating their own mixes, the same principle works in mixes. That is, you can create them by mixing colors, picking them as close as possible for those I show to you now. In tattoo mixes, there are black-based mixes. Roughly get 1 drop of black, 2 or 3 red, and 2 or 3 yellow drops. The shades you choose yourself just by buying a bunch of different colors. And there are a lot of brown ones ready to use. Therefore, it does not always make sense to mix other colors. Shades of brown can be obtained by changing the amount of ingredients. For example, to get a blonde one, you need to add more yellow, and to get a chestnut, add more red. We created brown by mixing ordinary colors. The brown is brighter than in my brown. I need to add more parts of red. It will become darker. This is slightly dangerous because of how dark this is. There is a lot of blue added, and you have to be careful when you mix the mixes yourself. But it's a chestnut color, so see, it has a red and can adjust saturation with the density of laying. The amount of pigment in the skin. Light brown is a color in which there is a lot of yellow. That is, I can even add more yellow to this color. And it becomes safer. It becomes back to a yellow base color. It is possible to work on practically every light-haired client with such color, adjusting the saturation without laying pigment density. I want you to understand that there is a lot of blonde clients who you work with warm light brown shades, and you regulate brightness. There's a lot of chestnut. Clients like me, a little bit darker or brighter. On these clients, you work with pigments with the red base. The same with the black mix. Play and adjust the saturation of its color. First, I will make it saturated dark. This is the base for chestnut customers, and as soon as I add it in there, twice as much yellow, it will again become sufficient, safe, and get a light brown shade. In other words, by adjusting the amount of red and yellow, you will get brown for brunettes and brown, more light closer to fair-haired for blondes. The law of arithmetic and equations work in coloring, but everything works only by adding. We cannot subtract a color from the already mixed colors. For example, brown is yellow, red, and blue. Blue is brown minus yellow and minus red. If you had a special pump pumping out from the mix, those are the thinly colors you could use. This is an equation, but in practice it is impossible, and we can just add the colors that we have. Only the base. Applying mathematics, we can see that we can get brown by using secondary colors like brown. It is orange, red plus yellow, purple, red plus blue, and green, blue plus yellow. We have a simple equation. Brown is 2 red, 2 blue, and 2 yellow. And now the magic begins. We can turn any secondary color to brown. Purple, red plus blue turns brown. If yellow is added to it, green, yellow plus blue turns brown. If you add red to it, orange, yellow plus red turns brown if you add blue to it. You are probably thinking, it would be great if it was not necessary to remember these stupid rules. Remember, these rules are optional if you have a calculator to determine the color corrector, which can make brown. This is a simple color circle by Itten if you use it by just choosing colors opposite to each other to adjust. The main one. It will not work because in our case, all colors are distorted by thickness. For example, in the color circle by Itten, the opposite red shades are blue. You can't work with blue. We must often work with green shades, and green is blue plus yellow. It means that it's always a little bit warmer than the color, which you see. How does this apply to the permanent makeup? Knowing these simple rules, you can adjust and mess on the eyebrows, bringing them out of purple, red, orange, and green. If the client comes to you with pink, purple, or blue eyebrows, is it possible to correct them? There are only 3 ways. There are correctors, missing colors, with which we can laser, a device for removing a pigment from the skin. This is a long and complex process which sometimes can, or even more, removers liquid that are applied to the skin and after the healing. From then, about color, let me remind you that these are colors, which if we add to the base, we end up, when do we work with the color correctors? If there are contradictions to the laser, if the laser does not react with the pigment, for example, or with color close to the skin, if remover did not help, or these are contradictions to it. If the brow from reason meets the criteria of quality, but the client does not like the color, then remember, if the eyebrows do work with the several colors. And now pause the video and learn these rules. Colors that often have to be adjusted, and the color correctors depending on the client's hair color.
В зависимости от того, какой цвет волос у клиентки, кстати, это очень важно.
We can turn any of the secondary colors to brown. For example, if I take a purple color, which everyone is afraid of, and if a client comes to you with such incomprehensible color on their eyebrows, and you have to work with them, how do you change it? Now I'll add a little bit more blue so it would turn purple. Purple, as you remember, is red plus blue. As I show it to you now, mixing colors, you add to it yellow and it becomes, you look what magic, it becomes brown, beautiful brown. And you can even tell it leans towards blonde. That means you can have purple eyebrows even or on a brighter client. This turns into a juicy light brown color. But remember one rule, do not work with a corrector on clean skin. You should work only on a color which you are. I have seen green eyebrows. They sometimes become green after the laser. The degree of greenness might be different. Yellow green, emerald green. Look at the shade and work only with it. The only thing is if the eyebrow were removed, have an irregular shaped, and you should think correct green eyebrows, because you will fixate the colors even more. In the color green, we just need to add red. Look here, the magic happened and the green became brown, depending on the amount of red. So now, I took a little more and it becomes more for brown-haired people. If you are making a green eyebrow, first go with red, then you see how the colors have changed, and then 2 times to understand that after healing, at least some part of this color will remain. Orange eyebrows. After permanent pigments, you'll need a large amount of orange eyebrows of different. Work with them. The orange color is quite easily corrected, contrary to, in fact, cold turquoise and some shades of with such color corrections of. All the correctors that work in the skin. For changing it to brown is green. This color is more brown-green. This color will help make any color to dark brown. For brunettes. Now I took the green and it turns out to be bright here. Because I did not have a very saturated red. If it is brighter, but such bright saturated eyebrows may be a couple of times. it should be such as the brown-green color, and it turns out that brown, which is closer to the color, that a brunette. And if you take an olive color, it's the yellow-green. Then will turn orange into a lighter color. For light-haired clients, because as a result, after the healing, we need different shades, not just brown. It may be dark or can be turned into light colors for blondes. The most unpleasant color to adjust is cold pink. And this color comes quite often. And here in this pink, we have red and a little blue. Pink, however, is almost purple. So, I'll take the color and I will mix in parts. I will take yellow and add a little green. That means a yellow-green color. Will allow you to turn pink eyebrows in a light brown shade, which will be easy for you to turn into any other color. The only thing is to not get carried of yellow in this mix to make it a safe combination of these colors. These parts, 3 parts, let's say yellow, and 1 part of green, and you get more or less safe color because we have neutralized the cold blue base. It becomes warm blonde. It's a very dangerous color, and I always try to correct such colors with the laser first because it's easier and more eco-friendly on the clients. Only then, if it is impossible to do and contradictions for the client, I will change here. We have different shades of brown, which we corrected. Many pigment lines have color correctors, and many tattoo artists ask, look, here's a color. Should I add a corrector to it? The same goes for tattoo pigment mixes. To our pigments, you don't need to add a corrector at all. If you work with confidentially at the right depth, don't break the rules. The colors are completely independent. You just have to regulate the saturation by the density of pigment laid into the skin. You only add a corrector if you see every cold thin skin and you don't understand that your technique is imperfect. You can go deeper. If you're trying to be more sure, and general corrections are used when there is already some kind of mistake and you need to fix it. Therefore, I do not recommend actively playing with our mixes and add correctors that are not needed. If you work properly, they will not be needed. The corrector is the color that changes the pigment. Say, if you add a red-brown corrector to your pigment, your eyebrow may heal red because it's not needed. Therefore, with correctors, be careful not to use. Some makeup artists perceive correctors as some kind of magic wand. They think, now I will grab these red color correctors and I will add them to all pigments and they will never turn blue or cold. Do not do this because you need a certain amount of ingredients in brown. If yellow will prevail, your eyebrows will not be bright. Yellow will prevail, your eyebrows will not be bright enough, and if there is too much red, then a customer may come to you with plastic red eyebrows that he or she doesn't need at all. Only then, on the correction procedure, you will have to add color correctors to get away from this color. Therefore, work with as clean as possible colors, so you can understand, see, and track how they would heal. In a month and only then, conceptually, the color in this or that skin, you will need to warm it in a little bit, which happens vary, but do not do it just for nothing on all clients. We will definitely develop and publish a detailed video course with instructions on how to work with color correctors. Working with color correctors required serious skill from the first. Try you may fail, so practice mixing colors on the palette to begin with, to accurately understand the little test. You have 10 seconds to answer each of the questions. If a client came to you with purple eyebrows, according to the theory of color, it can be turned brown, making tattoo with a special pigment. What pigment color of a corrector will you choose? If a client came to you with pink eyebrows, which pigment color of a corrector would you choose? The client came with green eyebrows. What pigment color of a corrector would you need to? If you answered with speed at least one of these questions and correctly, review this video again from the very beginning until you understand how colors are formed. If you answered correctly, you have comprehended a third of the color theory. Congratulations. It may seem that that's it. The lesson can be done, but it's not. Human skin is not paper. Everything is not so simple. It also has its own and shade. Moreover, there's a tremendous amount of these colors and shades. Even one person has a lot of shades on his or her face, completely different colors on each part of clients into very warm or cold, and all the rest, whom I cannot attribute to any type, I refer to conventionally neutral. How do you determine the color type? You can do this in the photo editor on the phone or computer by putting a photo of your client where background on warm or cold. Warm can be red, orange, some very warm peach. Cold is all shades of blue, as you remember, from blue to deep lilac. You can also do this by putting warm or cold fabric shades on your client's shoulders closer to the face, so you can see what the skin looks like against the background of this warm, if you can afford to take a photo. In this studio, on a real warm or cold warm red, light blue and blue, you will understand what color type your client is, cold or warm. Because the cold color types of appearance goes with cool shades and warm with warm. They emphasize quality of the skin and makes the face fresh and more beautiful, or vice versa. They highlight flaws, bruises, blood vessels. Everything will come out and you will see it and you will understand this color does not suit you. If you had absolutely nothing at hand, you can consider a face without makeup. Warm clients are those whose hair has subtone yellow, golden, or warm, and maybe even red. Skin has warm shades, peach, golden. Look at this face in general on large areas. Cheeks, foreheads, under the eyes, which are suit to be golden. Arises from warm to bright tones, of warm shades to even green, yellow, green. Cold color type representatives there have cold type representatives hair have, and even black or blue. The skin is a pink blue porcelain with blue shade. Gray green can be when it is not yellow green. But when the eyes are formed from steel gray and to cold blues. If eyes are from steel, closer to black and no tea amber. Hue in such eyes, it is for contrasting types. If you're being empty, talked about color types, or they start to teach you the concepts of someone, determine them and how they look exactly what suits them. You will be confused in them and everything will become more difficult. I could not find any clear metric definitions on how to determine the probability of 100% who's in front of you. One teacher can see you specifically as a spring and another one as an autumn. In different lighting, with different clothes, you will change your color type. And I do not see any reason to focus on color types, which there are 4 main. Each of them is divided into 3 more. It's just confusing and a mess in the head. Therefore, why begin to learn something that will not help? We discard color types and only talk about warm and cold clients, as we have now just discussed them. So choosing what color is work with the clients, we will look in the temperature as if the color type and its contrasting is high or soft. It is very simple. I won't focus on that contrast of the client is when there is a huge, big difference between skin and hair. Contrast. That is very white skin and dark hair. Soft contrast is when everything is nuanced, based on half-on-tees. More often than not, the client will state his or her wishes, and you choosing a pigment will try to get. Therefore, that's why we also talk about the contrast sidelong. It is usually important for the choices of clothes, not in our case. As soon as we start working on the skin, this is important. We have not only its color, but also its thickness. Simply, the thicker the client's skin or the deeper. You made a pigment, the color will look in any color. The skin is a non-uniform filter through which the light falls on the pigment, and the thicker and the darker this filter, the colder the color under it will look. The colored paper roughly imitates skin tones. They can be very different, and I'll show you how the same color looks differently simple. Brown is on every color. Here is a brown on white. The same brown on each of the colors looks like a different. Here I drew transparently, and through my transparent color you can see a paper, and it can be seen that in our case it happens that the top of the pigment will be laid by layer of skin that will distort the color. That the skin color is very important in the pigment selection. By the way, look on each of the papers. It is transparent and looks different. I put the same color brightly, meaning that pigment packing density is also very important. Each of these colors, if you put it bright, it looks completely different. This should help you in understanding the laying density. In different situations, on different skin colors, especially if you work on skin, let's say African American, very tan Arabian, or some very tan Asian people. This is if the pigment is laid transparently, it looks completely different. If the pigment is laid different, tightly contrasting to the skin. When the border is clearly visible, it is bright and it's obvious. It also looks completely. On dark skin, you need to take a very warm pigment and put it brightly so that it can be seen. And you can see that the same bright pigment on each skin type looks almost the same, but transparently laid on each skin color it changes. Shade adjusts. Here it is a yellow, and here is with green. Here it is the right red on full. That is not, no one needs that color on white paper. It's neutral brown. Therefore, if you want a minimum color distortion, this is, by the way, a very frequent question. Why did I put a beautiful transparent but it turned red? If this pigment is just with a red base, I'll show you now. Colors on the cotton pads, if it is a pigment with bright, a warm red base and you put it, then it may just look red on the skin because that is translucent. It may be a tad laid tightly. I have this thing, I did it specifically for this video tutorial. This is a gar, which color is very similar to the skin and concentration. It became in front and I filmed all the lessons on it. And why did I make it? I will now put it on top of these colors of the skin and pigment, which lies with me, and you will understand that the deeper the pigment lies, the color, the colder it looks. That is due to the tidal effect. You can Google it to learn more about it yourself. In a short and simple way, this adjusts the our skin is a light filter when the lace and rays of light pass through. If they are reflected from the irregularities of skin structure, and some of them are cut off, and deeper this filter, the colder the blue, the grayer the pigment looks, no matter the color, even the pink on the lips, and even more bright contrasting brown colors. Here, in this brown, for example, in fact, a lot of blue. How much does this color change? Where there it is high concentration, it looks blue, although you just saw that it was brown. This is very surprising, but each artist must know that 1 to the thickness of the skin on the depth of the pigment laying depends on how the final result will look like. Color changes deep inside the skin. It is beautiful brown, but we see it distorted, and moreover, when the light falls at a different angle, changes a shade a little bit. In life, it can look almost brown. Let's say, in cold light on the room, it may have a purple hue on. The sun, it will be warm brown. I will make this example even more vivid. I will take a very dark brown color. Sometimes artists work with a very dark brown. Looks on dark skin on the darkest paper. It turns to a gray blue shade on yellow paper. It looks too dirty somehow. I can't say it's brown. It's not. And so in all colors, it will look a stretch brown. The layer that imitates my skin is more than leather, but as an example, it is very cool. How to determine thickness of, we will need to pinch it. What is a tuck pinch? You do it on the forehead, near the eyebrows. You can do it in the 2 places near the head of the eyebrows and closer to the temple. Because the skin is very different in thickness in these places with the thick skin, the pinch can be from 0.05 centimeters and thicker. The skin is very easy to recognize. Such skin has always enlarged pores, a lot of oils in it, almost no wrinkles, even if the client is older of age. Plus, every shininess, all pores are very well visible. The skin is also clearly visible. There's a pinch, a few millimeters. My skin has a few of millimeters of a pinch. My skin is not fat and not thin, but dry skin has less than 5 millimeters pinch, becoming a very thin fold. Such skin is characterized by dryness. Density, this means it is not loose. Their pores are not dilated. They may or not even exist at all. Some skin looks like paper. If the client of gold or older age, then it is very wrinkled. Type of aging, when there are many small dry skin, often has weakened turgor, and it needs to work with very carefully. Of skin are most common. The pores may be slightly enlarged or not enlarged. Pinches are average, from about 4 millimeters to 6 millimeters. And that is the most common skin type on it. You should work at a medium depth on it with medium effort. All eyebrow pigments can be divided into brown and chestnut shades. In light brown, the base is yellow. The yellow color is predominant. All brown shades are lighter. The brown base is red. It is brighter. The skin on which I focus in my work and the main color types, let's say cold, warm, and their contrast, because it's more important. What else should you pay attention to? The darker the skin, the brighter and warmer the pigment should be, and denser it's laying into the skin. Between the skin and the tattoo, it should be clear for you. There must be a contrast for you to work to be visible. The thicker the skin, the warmer the pigment you need to take matching your clients. Type and contrast. Often the pigments do not give the shades of that we expect. They become blue-gray in the skin, maybe even orange. How to test pigments and avoid mistakes. A drop of pigment on a wet cotton pad will give a haze. You can also stir a few drops of pigments in a glass of water and look at the general tone of water in the glass. If you see purple raspberry, cold so raspberry, lilac green, you should work with such pigments with caution, maybe even the correctors since the beginning. Before you start working with a pigment, study the reviews about them. Find out how they have behaved after a year. And more, what is the high resistance of warm shades in a simple way. Learn whether they leave through red after half a year. Generally, about light resistance of pigment is the speed of its form ultraviolet rays. You all probably noticed your clients' or friends' eyebrows are red or the contrary of color shade gray or blue. More often, this is due to low resistance of color or vice versa warm colors. You can understand the light distance of pigments you are going to work with only after some time, tracking it on your clients. It would be best if you read the reviews in advance about the pigments. Of course, you should not hope that by mixing pigments in water you will understand how to work with them. Only by carefully examining the manufacturers and using them with caution, tracking how pure each of them heal, you will begin to understand the pigments you will work. You must take a photo of clients in a neutral or cold light, quite a long distance, so there would be no coldness of the face when you are determined the type cold or warm, and take a second of how you work with the client. Describe how the proceeded went if you want to deeper write about this. If you work lightly, write about it, because it all affects how the healed pigment will look after a month, after half a year later, and if you went deeper after years. You just have to understand and track how that you're going to work with will perform. Look at the correction. How is the color behaving? Look, update, collect data and analyze it. No one will give you the absolute simple rules that the pigment will behave this way and not otherwise, because pigment's behavior in the skin is by so many factors which influence. I now wet some cotton pads and I prepared them to show that you can try to determine the basis of the pigment. You will see which one is very warm or cold. Now I will show you. Suppose that this is our dark chestnut. Now the smoke will disappear, and you will understand more. I'll take care of others for now. Knowing which base is light resided warm or cold. You must know this, must study it, start working with pigments and how they behave. A year later of a year and a half, because there is on the timeline, and here for example, if you know the light resistance is red shades, you can consensually choose warmer shades for your customers. Warm, it means a red base and it can scare anyone at work, but if I know that it will dissolve pretty quickly, I can work them. If I say it's on the contrary resistance in the pigment, I absolutely cannot work with them. I will turn ginger orange and literally red after half a year. Therefore, be sure to study the properties of pigments on the internet. A form of manufacturers. Here's a yellow base again. It can be clearly seen. Here it is. Yellow-orange, a very warm pigment again. Here is some kind of gray-green base, so it's cold. Pigment. It is dangerous, so you must work with the pigment, either on warm skin or very superficial or with corrector. This is one of the aqua colors. It is called aqua often. It is recommended working with color correctors. They have a lot of them. This is not about our pigments. Here too is a very warm base and it has yellow orange haze, and there is green where this is green. It always means that there is a yellow color in this. The base is yellow and is quite safe. All red bases in the pigment mean that the pigment is bright. This means that for chestnut customers, it is likely needed to be laid tightly so that you don't get orange or red after healing. This is very interesting, and you can roughly understand what are the pigments in front of you, but you can't say it will look just like on a cotton pad. If someone tells you that after you stir a pigment in a glass of water or on a cotton pad, it will open before you reveal the truth and will know pigment is suitable for this type of skin. No, this is not true, because the way the color will look depends on many factors, including, as you saw, the previous experiences from the depth of laying, density of laying technique in which you work and form the pigment light. In other words, how they will look after. If you have questions, write them to our answer them. Thank you for all as part of our home. Don't have to go anywhere, no conference, or the artists who go to 10 conferences gather people and teach them some secret of the color theory. Everything is pretty simple. You just need to understand and apply immediately. Draw, mix, look. All this can be done at home. So I recommend you, as part of our remote course, get all the lessons and learn from them at home. If you have experienced artists, it will be very interesting and useful for you, since you are watching this video. If you have to watch it, you don't have, and if you suddenly doubt whether you need it or not, we have a test that will help you understand if you see or do not see symmetry, cold or warm colors, and so on. It's cool and interesting. I developed it for those who still do not understand whether they need the distance course, not to mention go somewhere here. In the description of this video, there's for sure will be a link you can take if you realize that this is fun, interesting, you even do it, and then you can buy our course remote artist and become a master by learning right at home without leaving your city, from your children, husband, work, without losing current income, and without any stress. I'm sure that you will succeed. Thank you for watching.